a domain name system. I'm not talking about content, because I know we are doing a lot today in Africa. When we talk about content, we are doing a lot. So we have many content today in Swahili, which is an important language for the region. But ICANN is able to support many communities today to use their own domain name and to use their scripts. So if you allow me, because I will have to disconnect later, I will go directly to my contribution, which is about how we can have the community, the African community, to be more part when we talk about inclusion. This is where the languages for our region, for example, if I say Swahili, which is a big language for the East African region, we have to be sure that our community today can be able to use the domain name using some characters which are in our particular languages. So in Africa, for example, we have more than 3,000 languages today. And Swahili is one of the languages in Africa. If you take Rwanda, we have also a language that is spoken in this country. But fortunately, we have what we call the Latin Generation Script Panel. The Latin Generation Script Panel, which is, this panel is working to define rules for languages that are using the Latin script. And many languages in Africa are using the Latin script. And today we have the work done by this panel completed. And today we have the opportunity, we can use some characters in our local languages to write domain names. So the issue now to solve is how to make it easy for other people to communicate with us. So I'm just to take this slide and talk about this slide, which is about the categories affected when we talk about international domain names and a universal acceptance. Today we have longer domain names. Like if you take .engineering, you see the number of characters of engineering. So more than 3 characters. And you see also domain names in languages that we may not know necessarily. But because of this support and this community working hard, we are able today to have many languages, domain names in many languages. So the gap to fill is to be able, with our systems in Africa, in East Africa, our system, to receive emails using these domain names. Like you have domain names today in Arabic, you have domain name in Indian languages, in Chinese languages. So these people, you have people who can use these domain names today to send you messages not in their languages. So like you can have someone using an email in Arabic in Sudan, for example, someone from Sudan using an email with the domain name in Arabic. So this person, like, is corresponding with you regarding this event we are organizing. So if your system is not well set, your system will not be receiving communication from this person. While this person is writing the message in English, you will not get this message. So this is not inclusion. So we should allow our communities, our different regions in Africa to contribute, to talk, to send messages using the domain names in various scripts. So today, ICANN is supporting the community in this effort to make the system universal acceptance compliant. So in one word, we should be sure that our systems today give the opportunity to everyone to communicate with us. Because of time constraints, so I will share the presentation with the organizers. But the key message is that everyone in this room, I will invite you to use this address, the address in the chat room, this address, universal acceptance, this address I'm sharing with you. So you should be able to use this address and test your system. So I'm posting the link in the chat room. Please, if you test your system, you just enter your email address. When you enter your email address, so the system will tell you that EAI is supported. If the system say EAI supported, it means that your system is ready. So if the system is telling you that EAI not supported, so you need to talk to the person in charge of managing your email system. If you have a Google email, the system will say that is fine because people managing Gmail have done the necessary. So my invitation for you is to use your organization email and to check. So depending on the response you get, please contact your people in charge of email address system or contact our team at ICANN, and then we can help you. So moderator, if you permit, I'll stop there and I can take one or two questions, and I will ask the permission to join another session. And I'm very sorry, I'll share the slide with you, and then I hope that if you have any question, please send the question and we should be able to get back to you. Thank you so much, moderator.
Thank you very much, Yovi. We wanted, I don't know how much time you have for us, maybe just a few more minutes, or if you're going to drop off, we can.
Yeah, like 10 minutes. I can take some 5-10 minutes. I'll ask the permission to the other event I'm attending to stay for any question because for inclusivity, my contribution today is that we should be ready. We should let people also talk to us being ready. So I can stay for 5 more minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again. I just wanted to get to one of the participants who is online, and a senior policy advisor, Mr. Mabike. Just from your engagement with the Internet Society, what would you advise us or tell us that have been some of the hindrances and the current limitations in realizing more usage and participation, especially in access, especially in policy-related matters within the ecosystem of digital inclusion and economy, more specifically to digital economy inclusion? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and greetings, colleagues. I hope you can hear me clearly. I'm afraid I don't think I can put my video on. I'm not very sure with my connection, so if you would allow me, I could just switch the video off. My connection is not very stable. So thank you very much for giving us or for giving me this opportunity, of course, to also share some perspectives and also some development we are seeing in the region. I know that this meeting is very high level, and I'm hoping that the session that's coming up will address some of the issues that I just want to address here. I want to address 3 or maybe 4 issues just to build upon what my brother Yove has just mentioned, very important issues with regards to domain names. But some of the things that we have been observing as well that are leading to hindrances and the current limitations that we are seeing with regards to usage or maybe participation and access. Firstly, I heard this, one of our guest speakers talking about this, and I think this is a very important aspect. So this is the limited and high cost of connectivity, and also sometimes the high cost of devices and operational costs for people who may want to innovate in this space. So this is a very important limitation that we are seeing in the region, in East Africa region in particular. I think this happens quite across Africa, but also an important aspect for us to investigate and probably explore how we should address this. So the cost of connecting, the cost of, for example, just the cost of data to come online is very high for some sections of our society, and it is very easy to limit access to a greater number of our population simply because they cannot afford the prices. So I think we need to be thinking of mechanisms of, bringing connectivity to all the sectors of our community. The youth, for example, we want to encourage young people to go online, to innovate. I think in the introduction, we kept on saying we want the young people to get involved in internet governance. But do they have the capacity to be able to, interact with the different stakeholders online? So certainly this is an important issue that I want to put on the table, and hopefully the next panel can also talk about how we think about or rethink how we cost connectivity. Then secondly, the lack of digital skills and expertise, and this of course speaks very much to capacity, and also goes beyond just the capacity to be able to do things online, but also goes beyond to even the trust and the security use of the ICTs online. So the level of skills that we have amongst our communities sometimes is not up to the level of it doesn't give them an opportunity to interact with the with ICTs effectively, to do something that can really change their lives. So I think this is one aspect again that we need to rethink how we build ICT expertise, and also just firstly the basic skills, and then secondly the digital expertise to support the kind of infrastructure that we are building. We are building so many infrastructure, I think, in different countries in East Africa. They are doing quite a lot in making sure that the infrastructure gets to all the last mile connectivity. But do we have enough capacity at the moment to support that infrastructure? And then coming to close to policy issues, I think one aspect that I just need to mention here is also the challenge that we've had in the past years with regards to poor coordination and harmonization of digital ecosystems. So, and again, I'm hoping that the policymakers who in the room will also discuss options for handling this. Poor coordination in the sub-region, in the East Africa region, but also this goes beyond the region and sometimes comes to the national scale. It is not very surprising sometimes to see different ministries or different government departments, launching different ICT-related programs, and sometimes these are very difficult to coordinate, and sometimes they duplicate many of the efforts that could be done by the different stakeholders. And the bigger picture for this is really it goes to it has big implications for resilience and quality of service. So I think this is again one important aspect we need to investigate and possibly find a way of making sure that the way we implement our programs from a policy point of view has a certain level of harmonization that can build on the resilience and the quality of service that we need. Madam Moderator, let me pause there and also see if my colleagues have anything else to add, and I'm still around to also respond to any questions.
Thank you very much for that insight. As we look at digital inclusion and the ability of digital technologies in empowering and driving inclusive economy, I would like to hear from Elia. What are some of those digital, just an assessment of what is happening within the region on digital economy?
Thank you very much, moderator. So my name is Elia Muleka. I'm working with Tanzania Startup Association, of course, under Policy and Research Department. And TSA has got a broader membership of around 400 members who are startups, and same to economic support organizations like hubs, incubators, So based on what you have raised, of course, with digital economy, it has transformed the way of doing things. And ICT remain the enabler for socioeconomic development. So to highlight about the status of the digital economy, especially from Tanzania, I would speak on different areas. One is on the infrastructure. And of course, talking of infrastructure, there is this. So the government has been working hard. The government has been working hard to ensure the penetration of the broadband, the coverage, to actually 80% by the year 2025. But also, based on the recent data from Tanzania Communication Regulatory Authority, the number of internet users have now increased from 29 million to 31 million. Also, around infrastructure, I would like to speak around, because last year we did a study on mapping and digitalizing startup ecosystem, that there is almost about 60 innovation hubs in the country, so which is a platform for use to harness. Also, around the status of digital economy, I would like to highlight on the area of human capital or digital skills. I understand there is a lot of from the ICT Commission, of course, to promote the ICT professionals, but also role of the academia through establishment of the innovation centers. Like for example, at the University of Dar es Salaam, there is a Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Same applies to I had communication with one of the person from Bayer University of Science and Technology. So far, they have established innovation cluster to ensure that we move where the digital skills is required. But also through the digital skills, it play a significant role to help youth to employ themselves. There is a so-called the digital freelancing. So someone can work anywhere remotely with the support of the internet. So around here, well, one of the challenges maybe I can say is we lack like the e-commerce strategy that will ensure a safe trade around e-business. Also, I want to add a bit about the mobile subscription. Based on the last test statistics, that the subscription has increased from 32.5 million to 37.7 million as of March this year. And of course, the increase is widely attributed by, is based on the active SIM cards with mobile money service used for at least 3 months back. So also, the government also has played a very good role, especially on the area of trade support environment. I would say the trade facilitation. We have developed the Tanzania Trade Portal, which provide highlights about the trading, if it's about export, if it is about import, the procedures, the licenses, and all kind of the requirements. Same applies to TANZIC, which helps around clearance of the goods. So these are the very few highlights around the performance of the digital economy in the country. Later on, I'll contribute again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eli. Ms. Asha, I see that you are a CEO for Media Convergency. Yes, I am interested in seeing, especially that we are all here looking at how we can strategize to make sure there is inclusion digital in the digital space as a region, as a bloc. What are some of the systems that are lacking or need to be there in order to enable digital inclusion? We can look at access and digital literacy within your space. What are some of those systems that can be put in place or are in place?
Thank you. I was a bit worried. We had the same question with Elia here. So he was breaking that down, and I was like, oh, these are good examples. I'll give a general perspective. So talking about inclusion, I would say, and I will speak as a player who has been in the space for a very long time. And I would say I understand, I might not understand 100% how our neighbors are doing, but I understand that in most cases, when it comes to inclusion, our neighbors are doing much better compared to us. And specifically, I will talk about the players. So sometimes when you talk about inclusion, we are only thinking about the users. We are talking about citizens, we are talking about such. But just imagine we have this serious conversation here. When you want to point out maybe the serious actors, maybe CSOs in Tanzania, maybe if I ask here how many people are from Tanzania and from the CSO community, if you could kindly raise your hand. So we have 5 representatives. We have more than 7,000 CSOs in Tanzania. So I'll give you a reflection of how we need to talk about inclusion, not at an individual level, but also at sector level. So maybe the second question would be how many organizations, how many representatives come from the media sector? Not the invited ones here, but the ones who are in the audience. Any media sector, please? If you could raise your hand, please. So, yeah, that's a very good set and example of how bad it is in our nation. I can guarantee you if we had been doing this meeting, and yes, I understand I need to talk positively, that I need to be proud of where we're doing fine, but it doesn't really work that way. We need to point out the pain points for us to make sure that we're working on it. I guarantee you that had we been doing this maybe meeting in Kenya or maybe in Uganda, the same questions I asked here, we would have more participants. So what are we doing as one of the organizations to make sure that we have the sectors, the right people or the right sectors involved? When you talk about digital transformation, for any kind of community, especially for developed countries, you have to think about the actors who are going to make sure that there is that digital transformation, there is that adaptation, there is that inclusion. So the first player is the government. The second player is the media sector, and the third player is the CSO community. Then we come now to the citizens. But when you look at the role of the media sector and look at the role of the civil society community, we will understand that there's nobody who can really wear their shoes. So what we're doing right now is to make sure that we are holding conversations with these sectors for them to embrace that there is a need for them to embrace the agenda. So talking about inclusion, then we talk about at that general perspective. But the other things we would like to, the other thing I would like to point out, borrowing from Kenya, where they're doing very well, the pillars of digital transformation are a bit different when you look at developing countries and developed countries, because the playing ground is different. So borrowing from Kenya, so that I read as they are, one is the pillars of digital economy, digital government, digital business, infrastructure, innovation-driven entrepreneurship, which Ali has given a lot of examples, freelancing, gigs, and digital skills and values. And now for us, Tanzania, for this to work, we won't talk about digital businesses, because when you talk about digital businesses, we would indicate as if we have a very good playing ground. It is not as good as we wish. So, yeah, inclusion, I would say that gap, we identified that gap as media convergency. And since the late 2020, we were working with civil society organizations. We worked with them for 8 months. And in actual fact, we were working, doing a study. The study is known as like an overview of emerging and applied technologies in the CSO ecosystem. And we had the privilege for it to be launched by then Minister, the MP Ndungulile, who's just left here. But the other thing, working closely with this community and the sector is, maybe I should talk without, oh, maybe I've moved, I'm sorry. So working closely with these sectors really helped us understand. Yes, we thought we understand, we had our own hypotheses and everything, but it has been really interesting, and we've been working in this sector until at the moment. There is improvement. We do a lot of monitoring. There is a lot of interest to make sure that we are in all the platforms that has to do with the civil society communities, while there is a media sector as well, but at the moment we've really focused with the civil society communities. We've also made sure that we have on board and introduced these programs to the ministries, the line ministries, the Ministry of NGO. Well, it is not called that, but responsible for the NGO, and the Ministry of ICT. And so far it has been very useful. And for the whole year, up to this end of this year, we partnered with Meta, where we're incubating 38 NGOs to make sure that they are digitally savvy, and changing the mindset into adapting a conversation to do with ICT, into making sure they are adapting to operations and administration. So yeah, we have a long way to go, but we're also providing digital skills to 1,000 participants working in the space to make sure that we have more players. I will contribute more, but so far now, directly to the question you said about inclusion, I thought it is better to put it there. So when you talk about inclusion, I think we should also start also looking at other sectors. We might be doing very well, but other sectors not doing as well as the sector we are in right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Yovi is still online. I would like to throw you one more question before you totally drop off. Is he still online, Barack? Oh, okay. If he's offline, we'll take the question back to, I'll give the microphone back to Mabike. Looking at the role of mobile technology and increasing access or bringing financial services close to the people and bringing them out of poverty. From your perspective as somebody at that level of internet society and as a policy advisor, what other forms can we leverage on other than just having the mobile services available to us in order to bridge the digital divide? From that angle, Mr. Mabike.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yeah, if I heard you correctly, you were saying how can we complement? I'm not sure if you said how should we complement what the telecoms operators are doing with regards to the technologies that they are bringing us. Yes. So if I understand that correctly, but please correct me if you need me to address something else. But just speaking from experience, I think for Africa, especially when it comes to the mobile technologies, especially financial inclusion, which is again a very important part of the access and inclusivity that we need to address. It looks to me personally that most of the models that we adopted, especially from a policy point of view, were not models that were not very appropriate for our region. You would actually find out that in quite a number of countries, we have 2 or 3 telecom, or even maybe 3 is the maximum for quite a number of progressive countries. It is not surprising to find 2 or even 1 telco operator in a country. In Ethiopia, for example, I think they just recently changed the policy to to open up the market to other players. So, and then you find these big players who have got this so much muscle, also protected by the laws and the regulation of the country that has been adopted from foreign places. They are now the ones that are giving us almost all of the solutions that our people are looking for. So you find that the telco operator is probably providing connectivity, but on top of connectivity, they have many other services which is riding on their capacity and access to the market already. So mobile money, for example. And it is very difficult for smaller players, for our innovators, who in most of the cases understand the issues on the ground. They understand the dynamics, they understand the needs of our people. But in most of the cases, they are not given an opportunity to even interact with those kind of systems, just to get access to a big telco operator to be able to build on top of a solution on top of their system. Sometimes it's very difficult because the regulation doesn't support that, and also they are not comfortable with competition. So this sort of kills all the great ideas that are likely to come from Africa. And I think this is one thing that I hope our policymakers could investigate very, very deeply, because if we really want to see innovations that are very practical and are close to the challenges that our people are facing, we certainly need to open up the market to bring new players complementing these services, and not assume that every community and society in all of our countries should be provided with a one straitjacket kind of solution. So please let me know if I addressed this question in the way you expected, but I can also expand on other issues if you want me to touch on other issues.
Thank you very much. You've touched on the question, and maybe just back to you, Ms. Asha. Just looking at the digital economy within the space of Tanzania, what are some of the hindrances? Because this meeting is supposed to form basis of some of those policies or recommendations that we can take away to implement, especially that we have even our policymakers, the legislators within the House. What are the hindrances for digital economy, looking at the case of Tanzania?
So the first one I already mentioned, having the right players, the significant players on board. The other one I would say is, I would say maybe lack of use or minimum use of data. You cannot talk about digital economy without talking about data or big data. You have to make sure, because data is there, that is what provides a way forward in strategizing for organizations, individuals, and national level as well. So there is a very big challenge when it comes to data and data usage. And I would say the other challenge, which has been very, very a bit challenging, is when you talk about research and resources, researchers which are locally context, in the way that when you talk about, maybe there is a digital divide, talking about Tanzania, understanding Tanzania as a country, as a region, that is also has been a challenge, that we need segregated data. Because when you talk about maybe digital divide, there is a digital divide between, there is a gender digital divide, the person with disabilities, because understanding that, then we'll provide solution which will work according to the division which is there. For instance, you talk about digital divide, but you don't take into context person with disabilities, then by default you won't have any solution, such as assistive technology, to make sure that it is part and parcel of decision making. And maybe also the operating environment. And I'm glad that the government is working on it at the moment. Like we really need a digital blueprint, a national digital blueprint that will guide to make sure that we really are an effective digital economy run country or nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A takeaway for you, Eli.
Yes. Can I add something?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so I want to add something around the challenges on the digital economy. Of course, this one is around the cost for accessing the communication resources. Because previously for Tanzania, if you want to access the USSD shortcode, the application fee was around $10 US, processing fee was around 2,000. The annual maintenance is around 2,500, which is quite big. But so far through our advocacy, and I'm glad to see Honorable Ndugulile is here. Now for the startup to access the USSD shortcode in Tanzania is free. The government has waived. I'm not sure for the other partner states. I think they can take this initiative, which will provide a framework for the startup to harness the potential for digital economy. But the same applies also for the issues around policy, because with the digital economy, there is startup emerging with the use of modern technologies like AI, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics. So we need like a policy that will provide a framework to accommodate the needs of the startups. I've seen a couple of days, Nigeria have passed the Startup Act. One of the incentives I've seen, startup can have a tax break of around 5 years, for within 5 years, and many other issues within that. So I think that one also, we need to take it as we speak around digital economy. Thank you very much.
What would be your takeaways as you address the participants today on digital inclusion?
I think we need more for sensitization and capacity building, because I've been through some of the statistics that women hold a very small percentage in the digital space. In the country, it's around 25%, I think. And even girls who are taking the, studies around science, computer science is less than 10%. So we need such kind of sensitization and capacity building, and this should actually start from the grassroots level. And of course, from the grassroots level, we need to equip the young generation with innovative skills, such that they can, take advantage of the digital economy, but also they can employ themselves. Because in the country, roughly 800,000 to 1 million young people are entering into the job market, of which less than 10% are getting fully employed. So with such kind of capacity building from the lower level, it will help young to improve themselves. It will also address the academia industry gap. Yes, so briefly I would say like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we still have one person online. As we conclude, I would like us to note that developing an inclusive digital economy will require a sustained, coherent effort by all of us who are here in this room today. It is not only the role of the public sector, it is not only the role of private sector, it is all of us. And as a region, we need to make sure that we work together in order to build our digital economy. Just our participant online, our speaker, Mr. Mabika, if you could give away your you could give us your takeaways as we conclude on digital economy.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I would not repeat what my colleagues have said. I think that's in sync with what we really need to do. But maybe I'll just also mention that there are opportunities that are coming up that we are seeing from a continental level or from a regional level. And I believe that as the East African region, we also do have an opportunity to tap into those ideas and build upon all those developments and programs that are coming up. And most of them, of course, they still go back to the policy issues. Of course, maybe I'm a little bit biased on policy-related issues. But for example, the PRIDA, I know Madam Margaret is here, probably she would expand on that, but PRIDA is really focused on building the necessary capacity for our region and for our people, especially young people, to tap into those ideas. So I also encourage participants and also the organizations present to find ways of feeding into such kind of programs. I also know that as a continent, we just launched the digital transformation strategy for Africa. And again, my colleagues from African Union probably will talk about that in detail. And this is very important pillars. Firstly, infrastructure pillar, which I think is very critical to close the digital gap that we do have. Most importantly, I like the idea of a digital sovereignty fund, which is meant to, go beyond just the rhetoric of talking, but to support the innovations that are coming from young people. And again, I encourage participants, colleagues present, and also our policymakers to find ways of, encouraging our young people to tap into those opportunities. So thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much, our speakers, our panelists today. And unless we have questions for the team here, I would like to open the discussion, or one or two, to the floor. Thank you.
There are mics on the floor. I don't know.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Lillian Alex. I work with YACSOF, and I'm really glad to be part of this conference this year. I've never been part of it, and I'm glad you've spoken about inclusion, considering I just got an invitation yesterday's evening. So this is really a milestone. So what I just wanted to raise, I don't know if this is the right place to raise it, or it's the right, forum to discuss this. But I'm realizing that you're speaking a lot about inclusion across the East African region, about digital establishment across the region. And my question is, at the East African level, we have had a number of questions, or the main issue that we've been discussing is how we actually domesticate the Common Markets Protocol. And seeing that you're also speaking about something about digital economy, I didn't catch up the conversation very well. I came in a little bit late. But my question is, how do we actually plan to harmonize this, the issue around the internet across the region? I believe I'm not the only Tanzanian here, I'm not the only East African here. We have Kenyans, probably Ugandans, and we actually really know once you just cross the border in Namanga, before you even leave Namanga, the internet has completely gone off. And even if you have your bundle you've bought from Tanzania worth 50,000, I mean, you cannot use it across the border. So I don't know if this is the right platform to actually state that question. Probably we should have had the phone companies in this conversation as well, because we are really trying to see how we harmonize communication across the region so as to enable the trade, or facilitate the trade across the region. So my question is on the internet. If you're also speaking about using internet for economy purposes across the region, how do we harmonize that and ensure that we have internet access regardless what part or what country you are in the region, with your original internet access that you already have from your region country? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that we have in my other capacity, I've worked currently I work with the National IT Authority, Uganda, but I've worked with the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, and I'm going to answer on that front, and I know that we have colleagues from the East African community that will take up the question. How are we handling or harmonizing internet-related issues? How many of us are aware about the IACO? First of all, we've started on harmonizing the policies across from that aspect. We have one area code network that we call, like, from Uganda and Kenya, and Uganda, Kenya, South Sudan. We call like we are home. There are no charges, and maybe probably those discussions are going to cross over into the wider East African region. So that is one of the things that I'm looking at that we can use to harmonize. So I will pass on the microphone to, I think, Barak, who has been in that space to give a comment on that. And we will conclude. Sorry again.
All right. So I just want to add on the issue that she has raised, which indeed is really important, and especially now that legislators are also in the room. And just to add a small twist to it, she used the example of Namanga. Actually, when you come in through the Namanga border, approaching Arusha, you'll find that as you move closer to Arusha, that's when you start getting a stable network or strong network. So we still have those access gaps. These are discussions we've had for over 10 years, I think, at East African level. But I think maybe we need more awareness and a greater push from our legislators as well, so that those areas, I know the larger part is a national park as you come in, but at least there are people who are staying there for that matter. And sometimes when you're driving and you're relying on Google Maps, you find that you go for 50 or 60 kilometers, that's when you can be able to find network. So those are access gaps that probably need to be addressed. Maybe IACO will speak to that, but also our regulators are doing something on those particular access gaps, and we can discuss it extensively as we move on with the next sessions.
Maybe just to note that this question will be well answered in the session that is termed "Role of Policymakers in Advancing Development in East Africa," advancing internet development in East Africa. We'll tackle that. Please join me in thanking our panelists. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for shedding more light on digital economy and inclusion. Thank you. Over to you. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for the panel. Thank you. And the next session is on the role of policymakers in advancing internet development in East Africa. And this panel consists of some of the, we have Barak Otieno. I think he will moderate the session. And the speakers online, we have Dr. Margaret Nyambura Prida, which is a policy and regulatory initiative for Digital Africa. And we also have Honorable Magogo Moses Hasim, is a member of parliament from Uganda Parliament. Honorable Nabeta, okay. And also we have Gloria Katuku, Manager Planning Strategy and Performance, NITA Uganda. And Dr. Faustin Dugulile, please, if you can approach the seat, take your seat. And lastly, Dr. Ali Simba, Executive Secretary, East Africa Communication Organization. So Honorable, who is sitting on behalf of Magogo, Honorable Magogo Moses Hashim. Who is moderating? You're moderating?
I'm moderating, yeah.
Okay, a round of applause for our eminent speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Karibuni sana.
Thank you very much, Naza. And moving on swiftly, we'll do our best to conclude this panel by 1:30. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting panel. And I'll just request my panel in 1 minute just to introduce themselves. I will start with Dr. Ali Simba from the left. How you would like us to know you within the context of this meeting, and then we shall proceed from there. Dr. Ali, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and I think it's still morning. Good morning. As introduced, my name is Ali Simba. I'm the Executive Secretary of East African Communication Organization. I've been mentioned in the previous session. IACO, in short, is a regional organization based in Kigali, Rwanda, established by the national regulatory authorities in the ICT sector, operators, as well as some of the academia. And the key objective of IACO is on the issue of policy and regulatory harmonization, as well as on the coordination and implementation of postal broadcasting and telecom development in the region, as well as looking for means and ways for faster, reliable, and accessible communication service in the region. Now, to put a disclaimer, as of now, IACO is not an official institution of EAC, and that's where we are going right now, where the discussion are with the ministries of foreign affairs in our region. We have been working for past 10 years in this area. We have a lot of issues to share, and I'm looking forward to share those issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simba. Dr. Faustin?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Faustin Ndugulile. I'm a Member of Parliament for Kigamboni constituency in Dar es Salaam. I think I'm one of the oldest person out. I have a medical background, but I was the first minister for the ICT ministry in Tanzania. But I'm also an ICT enthusiast. Yes, let's go this way.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Nathan Nabeta Igeme. I am a Member of Parliament from Jinja across the lake. Thank you
very much. My name is Katuku Gloria. I represent co-founders or the longest serving technical person in the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Dr. Nyambura, do we have you online?
Yes, Barak, you have me online. Sorry, I will still not put my camera on. I am Margaret Nyambura Ndongo, working as a senior regulatory and internet governance expert for a project called PRIDA, and PRIDA stands for Policy and Regulation Initiative for Digital Africa. This is a project of the African Union and being implemented by ITU and funded ITU on one track, which is mainly on connectivity, but then also it has 3 tracks. The second track, which is deals with the harmonization of policy, regulation, and legal guideline strategies and the like, and the third track, which is internet governance, that I'm working on. I'm happy to be with you and looking forward to an interactive interaction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyambura. Ladies and gentlemen, we expect a very interactive session now that we have the people's representatives with us here. And I look forward to both a robust discussion in the room and with our online participants. Of course, a lot has been said about developments in East Africa, insofar as internet development and ICT development is concerned, and the role of our governments, the role of our policymakers cannot be underestimated in the process. And I believe to take us through some of the gains that we have been able to make is the panel. Can we control the online platform, please? All right, so to take us through some of the developments, of course, there have been very many positive developments, and also to address some of the shortcomings will be this able panel. And I'm going to start with Dr. Simba from IACO. Of course, at the end of the day, most of these things have to be executed with the support or concurrence of the regulatory bodies across the East African region. So, Dr. Simba, if you could just give us a highlight of some of, in your consideration, progress that we have made as the East African community that has enabled us to be at the forefront of ensuring that the internet is being used for social and economic development.
Thank you very much, moderator. And again, thanks for inviting me to this panel. To begin with, I'd like to mention that the establishment of IACO 10 years ago was due to the gap that existed in the coordination of ICT sector in East African region at that time. Now, we at IACO, we work in, with a number of technical committee in a very collaborative manner. And as such, we have become the point of contact when regional matter are being discussed. Now, there are a number of issues that have been discussed, and I'd like to first to touch the point that was discussed in the previous session, because number one is the connectivity and affordability of service within the region. And as such, in 2015, the presidents of East Africa countries approved the use what we call one area network, where people could roam with their telephones without roaming charges. Because as you know, one of the biggest challenge in telecommunication service when you move from one country to another is roaming charges, where the host country and the foreign country that you are visiting have to be paid. Now in 2015, the president approved that the roaming charge should be abolished. But unfortunately, that has been done for only 4 countries. That is Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and South Sudan. And Tanzania and Burundi have been outside for some time. But there's a very good news now that Tanzania is just, and again, this is, it is a very auspicious day today, because my brother in my right here was a minister when he signed the approval for Tanzania also to waive the roaming, and I think very soon we will be able to utilize that. But again, there is a discussion going on, because as you know right now, people are using more data than voice calls. So we believe, for those who are reading, who are in this sector, know that in Europe now, we have zero roaming charges not only for voice, but for data also. And the plan was, when we conclude the voices roaming, we should go to the data, so that data also can be used across the region. And I believe that is will happen in the near future. And I think that, as we talk around the area of common market, as was mentioned by the other colleague in this meeting, is going to improve the use of communication service in enabling the businesses in our countries. And as such, we are going to support the socio-economic development of this region, as well as making sure that the regional integration is improved. So I think I can start by mentioning that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simba, for your opening remarks. And I think I'll quickly move to allow me to refer to you as Honorable Minister. Once a minister, at least you've been at the nexus of the executive and parliament. And my question to you then would be, do we have adequate structures, looking from an executive perspective within the region, that can then enable us to leverage on the fast changing inventions or innovations that are coming up through the internet? Or are there any things, or are there issues that we need to address maybe at policy level, which is a question that I'll bring to the Deputy Chair of the ICT Committee here, across the region, because I believe that our houses are the same.
Thank you very much for that question. You see, development of the digital transformation is coming in different paces in different countries. So there's no harmonization. Even the names of the ministries in different countries it's called differently. We call the Minister of ICT, the countries call them the Minister of Digital Transformation, other countries are calling the Minister of Digitization. So there's no harmonization across the region. I'll speak briefly about Tanzania and what we can do as an East African community. In Tanzania, initially, the digital transformation was part of the Ministry of Works and Transportation, but since 1920, after election, a new ministry was formulated that was responsible for ICT, and I became the first minister for that. So I had the responsibility of setting up that ministry, but also trying to push the digital transformation agenda in the country. We have the national ICT policy, and within my time, I was able to come up with the ICT strategy going forward, but also looking at the infrastructures and work on to increase the ICT backbone. When I came, it was around 5,000 kilometers, and according to the party manifesto that we had, we needed to get to 15,000 kilometers by 2025. So currently we're around 10,000 kilometers across the country. And if you're coming in today from the hotels, you could see some fiber optic cables are being laid. And we came up with a very innovative way nowadays. Instead of digging trenches to lay fibers, if you go out today, you see we are using electrical pole. Currently, we are almost at 90% coverage in terms of electricity coverage in Tanzania, and we thought we needed to use that infrastructure to reduce costs, but also increase the coverage in terms of internet infrastructure. But we are also looking at connecting the neighboring countries, Burundi, Rwanda. We are working DRC, but also Mozambique as well. And also in terms of the policy areas that we are currently working on, we have very freshly minted data protection and data privacy law. We just passed it in Parliament last week. So we hope that is going to be signed when the president comes back. So hopefully before the end of this year or early next year is going to be implemented. But something that's very unique, and I think it needs to mention here, there's a very rapid progress in terms of digital transformation in Tanzania, and we just had our census results about a week ago. We are 61 million in Tanzania. But if I look at the statistics now, we have more than 58 million registered SIM cards. So that means one would have 1, 2, 3 SIM cards. But with the current pace that we are going, I think the numbers, in terms, the number of multiple SIM cards per person is going to be reduced, because now interconnection rates and rates of calling across the carriers is really going down, so people are dropping number of phones. But see, I was looking at the There's huge booming business of mobile money, but also internet usage. In terms of internet usage, this is also very high, 31.1 million registered SIM cards that are using internet. And I was looking at in terms of coverage here, in terms of penetration, in terms of the population, we have 55% of the country covered by the 4G. But in terms of the geographical locations, around 36% of the country is covered. So we are making some progress in that area. So maybe to conclude my remarks, you asked me what needs to be done. And I think this is an opportunity for the East African community to harmonize. We need to have harmonized in terms of policies, ICT policies, digital transformation policies, but you also need to harmonize the approaches, because there are certain things that are common. The connectivity, we mentioned about the roaming part, which we dealt with, but also we need to make sure that, because there is very high data usage, this also needs to, the cost of data needs to go down, because this is something that is now being used by so many young people, and in order to motivate and promote innovations, we need to make sure that the price of data goes down. Now, I think I'll stop there for now.
Thank you very much. You've really given a good introduction on and tackled important issues. I'm sure the audience will weigh in. I want to move quickly to Honorable Nabeta, and maybe you could speak to the pace at which parliaments across the region are ensuring that we have the right legislative frameworks to ensure that we adopt and are able to benefit from the goods that come with embracing the internet. If you could speak to that and any other issues that may have arisen from the previous speakers, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. First, I will apologize on behalf of my chairperson who wasn't able to make it. So I'm representing him here today. Number two, I don't think I'm the authority to talk about other parliaments, but I will speak about the Parliament of Uganda, just generally in terms of what we've done so far in the space of the ICT. As I think my colleague Doctor said, one of the problems is harmonization in terms of how we call the ministries or committees in Parliament. And even when you look at the East African Treaty, you can see that they talked about telecommunications, but they didn't go further into the ICT space. For Uganda's perspective, at least Gloria has told you that she's been one of the longest serving technical people. We created this ministry, I think, 2011, and then we created NITA. I was the chairperson when we created the NITA, the National IT Authority Act, which created the IT authority to drive ICT in the country, in Uganda. And then we set up a project called the National Backbone, which is to set up the fibers. As Doctor said here, overhead. For us, we had started it in 2007, 2008 to dig fiber. Of course, now we have also learned that sometimes it's better to go overhead. Sometimes it's cheaper, but if it is planned well and the conduits are laid down initially, then that means you can lay fiber, and anybody else who wants to lay fiber can always lay fiber, and therefore can bring broadband to everyone. Now, some of us, like Uganda, which is landlocked, sometimes we've experienced the fact that the internet is twice as expensive, because, for example, the submarine cable lands at Mombasa, and then we have to take that internet from Mombasa through Nairobi to the borders of Uganda, Malaba, and Busia. So you find that sometimes the internet becomes much more expensive for the people in the landlocked countries like Uganda, Southern Sudan, and Rwanda and Burundi, and even eastern part of DRC. So in one of the things we need to do, and I'm happy Doctor is here, although I had thought that we'd have a bit of more interaction with other colleagues, it would be nice to have the policy makers in each parliament to sit down and see how do we harmonize. One of the things we need to look at is the advantages we have as East Africa. With the addition of DRC, we are a population of 285, 285 million people with a GDP of about 300 billion, 305 as of today's figures. Now, the opportunities with that, one of the advantages the people in Silicon Valley have had over us is the numbers. For them, they've had the numbers. That's why they launch Facebook, they launch Google, they launch what? They have the numbers to uptake. Now, for you young people, that I've seen is that there is an opportunity to leverage on the African population, especially for East Africa. If you're looking at Africa as a whole, that's 1.2 billion people. Now, if you were to create something similar to WhatsApp, to Facebook, to what locally done, then you can take advantages of some of the numbers you have. Now, for us on the policy level, in the African setting,